Hi, I'm James from James Does Things, and in today's video I'm going to be explaining why Dave Ramsey made me close my eBay store. Okay, now before you cry clickbait, no, Dave Ramsey didn't come to my house, point a gun at me and force me to close my eBay shop. And no, I'm not quitting eBay either. However, having read this book, I now realise that I was doing my business all wrong, and lots of other things as well. So that's why I'm going to spend a little bit of time explaining what this book is about, and it's not going to be a book review, but I'm just going to explain the system, and then I'm going to explain how it applies to me and what I'm going to be doing going forward, and it should be interesting. So by the way, if you've read this book, or if you're either doing the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover, or if you've done it before, I'd love to hear from you. So please leave me a comment and tell me your experience, tell me, you know, how much debt you were in, and or, you know, how successful it was or wasn't. Okay, so first things first, what is this book? This book is the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. He is a world famous get out of debt guy. He's been teaching a system for 30 something years, and essentially he takes people, he has a 7-step system that is supposed to take you from being in debt to being wealthy over a number of years, and potentially even a millionaire within 10 years. So the bit I'm interested in is essentially the first 3 of these 7 steps. So his system is essentially, the whole premise of his system is that debt is bad. You get out of debt as fast as you can, and then you never get back into it. You cut your credit cards up, you don't take any more loans, you buy everything with cash, and you invest, you know, specific amounts of money for specific things. And it's all about doing things in a specific order. There are other ways of doing it, and it's not necessarily the mathematically, when you look at interest and things like that, it's not mathematically the most efficient way of doing it, but it's once you get into it, you'll see it's a simple, specific way of doing it that looks to be quite effective, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. So if you've not come across Dave Ramsey's system before, essentially it's got 7 steps, only the first 3 of which are important to me at the moment, and they are: the first one is you make yourself a £1,000 or $1,000 emergency fund. So that's essentially for if you get a flat tire. So it's not going to cover everything, it's not going to cover a funeral or whatever, you know, a flight to some random country in a hurry, but it will cover kind of a lot of you random emergencies. So you make that, that's the first thing you do. So how you make that, I'll come on to in a minute. The second step is, once you've got that emergency fund in place, you then start attacking your debt. So you arrange all of your debts from smallest to largest, and you pay off the smallest one first, and then without any extra money that you can muster, and essentially you make the minimum payments on all of your other debts, and you throw every extra penny you've got for that first debt, and then whatever money you were using to pay off that first debt, whatever the minimum payment was, plus whatever extra you had, you then throw that at the next debt, and so when you've paid that one off, you throw the minimum payment from that debt and the minimum payment from the first debt, plus whatever extra you can muster, and you throw that at the next debt, and you go on and on and on until you've paid off all your debts. And the idea is that they said typically that'll take, I think the average is like 18 months, they said. And some people pay it off like that because they've actually got some savings. Obviously some people it might take them 5-10 years, but I'm hoping it won't take that long for me. But that is the plan. That's how you get out of that debt. And then when you've paid all that debt off, that's not including your mortgage, that comes later, but essentially all unsecured debt, things like car payments and unsecured loans, credit cards. And then once you cleared that debt, you use the same money that you were paying off all, you know, your last debt with, to save yourself a little kind of, not nest egg, but it's like a 3 to 6 months buffer of your monthly expenses. So essentially, if you couldn't work for 3 to 6 months, whatever the figure is, then this would pay for your mortgage, your bills, you pay for all your living expenses. So essentially you wouldn't, you know, if for whatever reason you couldn't work, you got laid off, you got injured, you were sick, then you had that buffer, you wouldn't need to borrow money again. And then once you got to that point, once you got your 3 to 6 months of living expenses, then you can start looking at investing and
paying off your mortgage early and some other stuff. So all that's very much in the future, but essentially the three things that there's 3 steps I'm interested in are essentially all use the same system. They're all one and the same thing, is you just work like mad to get out of your debt and get yourself a buffer. So that's the important bit. So you might be thinking now, well, what does all this stuff have to do with eBay and my eBay shop where I sell Pokemon trading cards? So to give you a bit of background about me and my business, essentially about a year ago I decided I was going to start selling on eBay again as a business. So I started a company and I started an eBay shop, and I started buying Pokemon and Magic the Gathering trading cards. They're just basically collectible trading cards if you're not familiar with them, and selling them on eBay. So trying to buy them in bulk, mostly buying new, but essentially I was buying them with money I didn't have. I was borrowing money, and I had this kind of mentality of, well, you got to spend money to make money, and I'll turn them around for a quick profit, and that kind of thing. And I had lots of other, I did actually do a business plan, which is unusual for me. Usually I just kind of wing it, but this time I did actually plan it quite carefully, and there were a few things that didn't work how I thought they would, but essentially I could have just kind of stopped where I was and not spent any money, and it would keep going, and I might be able to reinvest that money, but in reality it wouldn't have gone anywhere very fast. I wasn't making as much profit as I thought I would, and I wasn't making it anywhere near as fast as I thought I would. On its own, they weren't reasons to stop it, but the fact is I kind of went too big too soon. So I also had an eBay shop, I had a Shopify store, and I also had a subscription to a grading service. So I was buying cards and sending them off every month to be graded, with the rationale that I was improving these cards' value, was increasing their value, and therefore it was kind of it was paying for itself, which it didn't, because it didn't increase the value as much as I thought it would. But that's a different story altogether. So essentially I was borrowing money to kind of to buy stock for my shop, but I was also incurring lots of overheads for having, even though it was an online shop. I had 2 online shops, neither of which were as good as they should have been in hindsight. So and reading this book just made me think, well, I'm doing it all wrong. I shouldn't be borrowing money to run this business. I should be investing this money. I was basically putting pressure on myself to sell things quickly rather than investing the money. I was kind of the trouble with trading cards is it's a gamble. Every time you open one of these boxes, every time you buy a box like this, you might get 8 or 10 packs of cards, and you never know what's going to be in them. You usually get 1 shiny card in each pack, but sometimes it can be a shiny card worth £1, sometimes it can be worth £20, but you don't know. And there's quite a big variance in what you can get. So it is a lottery, essentially. You are gambling every time. I mean, you're gambling with business when you go into business anyway, but it's an even bigger gamble. It's an unacceptable gamble, really. So because my business was operating the wrong way, basically was borrowing money I didn't have and gambling it on these products, it was tootling along. It was kind of at least break even. If I didn't have the overheads of the shop and I'd run it in a more lean way, I think it would have been profitable. But coupled with the fact that I was borrowing money to buy everything, then it just wasn't viable anymore. And so I've decided to kind of I've decided to sell everything, all of my stock, and pretty much my plan is to get rid of pretty much everything that you can see behind me here on these shelves. So there's some of the books I really like and I'm going to keep, and some of them I need for work, but a lot of the other stuff, there's like packaging materials and stuff down there, other random stuff down there. So pretty much my plan is to get rid of all that and a lot of other stuff that you can't see because it's horrendous, and just try and use my income and then some of the side incomes to get myself into a position where I can invest in a business rather than borrow money and have it as this kind of this mad risk sort of cycle, which isn't working. Okay, so what am I doing next? Well, as I said before, I'm not quitting eBay, and in fact what Dave recommends in his system steps 1, 2 and 3, where you're saving up an emergency fund, getting out of debt, and then saving up more emergency funds, is that you essentially sell everything. You sell whatever isn't nailed down. What you don't need, then you sell it. So I'm going to be doing a lot of eBaying, but not as a business. So I'm just going to go back to my personal account, which I have actually already started, and I'm going to be selling all my stuff. So my first project is to get this £1,000 by selling lots of random stuff, and then after that, Dave recommends when there's nothing left to sell, you basically increase your income. So I've actually got quite a good day job, and I work from home, which is great. So I'm not going to be able to really improve that side of it. I don't really fancy delivering pizzas, so what I'm going to try and do, I think, is a sort of some kind of making money from home, hopefully with eBay, but not buying things. So essentially, I don't want to be buying things and selling them, trying to sell them on. So I'm going to be trying to either make things or do digital products. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to do another video on that, on what I'm actually doing next. But in the immediate future is lots and lots of eBay. So in the next video, I'm going to be trying to get my first £1,000 for my emergency fund as per Dave's system, but also I'm going to be looking at reducing my outgoings, so different places I can make savings. So that's the next part. So next video, it'll either be both of those things together, or it'll be one of those things, and it'll be sort of split into 2 parts. If you've got experience of using Dave's systems, if you've been through this process and got out of debt with them, I'd be really interested to hear what you've got to say. So please leave me a comment, get in touch. And other than that, thanks for watching, and please leave a like and consider subscribing for more content like this.